Hello, everyone. Welcome to Made to Dream. I'm your host, Maya Chanel, and here we share stories from women around the world to inspire, encourage, and empower women and young girls to dream without limitations. Today, I have the ultimate pleasure of speaking with Miss Sana Koljonen. I believe that is how I pronounce her name. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's fine. That's
Okay.
fine.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. I got to get it right. We got to make sure that we're represented properly on here. So, yes, she's an authenticity coach, and I'm excited to hear so much more about her story. There's so many great things in there. Just a cool tip, she played professional volleyball, guys. So, we're going to hear so many great things from her. So, how are you doing today, Sana?
I am doing great. Thank you. How are you doing?
I'm awesome. I'm awesome. So, we want to open up the floor and let you tell the audience a little bit more about yourself and what you do.
Okay, great. First of all, thanks for having me. And secondly, yes, so my name is a little bit weird for Americans. That's because I am from Finland. And that's like I moved to Denver a year and a half ago. And yes, I used to
Mhm.
be a professional volleyball player. So I played for the Finnish national team. And then
Mhm.
also, like, the professional club season happens in like other countries. So then I usually used or lived 8 months of the year somewhere like Germany or France or then Finland sometimes.
Mhm.
And that was a great journey. Like, I absolutely loved playing volleyball because I always loved sports and I loved practicing. But
Mhm.
then 2018 December, I was living my dream in France and got really badly injured. I got a
Mm.
bacterial infection on my
Oh,
ankle,
wow.
and so that ended my career. Like, I was practicing 5 hours a day and being like,
Mhm.
okay, heading towards the biggest competition of my life, to European Championships in the next summer. That has been like a 2-year trip with all the other athletes that we have had that squad.
Mhm.
And yeah, just some like I just really got very unlucky and got that bacterial infection. And it took me 5 months before I could even like walk again and for
Mm.
surgeries. So that was a very surreal life change that I had to go through.
Wow.
But yeah, so that's kind of like how I ended up quitting volleyball, because that's often one
Mm.
of those questions like, why did you quit? Or
Uh-huh.
because I'm 32 now and I could have still played. So that happened when I
Mhm.
was 30. Yeah, 30. And then I moved to Denver because I was like, okay, I need to get away from all of the volleyball, like the playing thing, because I was living in this
Mhm.
like volleyball bubble. And I was like, I need to get
Uh-huh.
somewhere away from this.
Mhm.
And then I found a spot in Denver. They offered me a volunteer assistant coach position at
Mhm.
Colorado University of Boulder. So
Mhm.
that was it. I was just packed my bags and I was like, okay, I'm going. And I'm still here.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So then I coached for 1 year, and then at the same time I started like having this little idea like, okay, how much I could actually affect other people who are still in that, like athletes who are still in that sports and competitive world. And I saw it
Mhm.
like for so many years, all the flaws also, that they're like, it's an amazing environment, but there's
Mhm.
also a lot to improve in there. And that's what
Right.
I started like playing a little bit around with this idea, like what could I do. And then during the time when I got injured, I started
Mhm.
working from my bed basically to a
Mhm.
company called Extended Disc, who does personality assessments. So
Mhm.
then we created together a assessment for athletes
Mhm.
and for sports world. So that's how I kind of like got started, like working again and getting back to my feet, literally, because the bacterial
Mhm.
infection was in my ankle. And
Wow.
yeah, so then I just combined those two things, like coaching and personality assessments, and just
Mhm.
the whole world that I just loved to be in. And now I'm an entrepreneur in that world. So love it.
I love it. I love it. I love what you're doing. Like, I think that's really important because sometimes you have to step away just to like realize like the gaps that are missing in what you were doing. I think that's the way with
Mhm.
business as well because sometimes we're like, oh my gosh, like I'm not getting it. I'm not getting the success that I want. And it's just like sometimes you have to kind of like look at the overall scope of it, look at that blueprint of everything that's going on, just take a step back, stop what you're doing, just to realize, where you can help, where you can improve. So I think that is, a great tip for everyone, especially in the business industry.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that was my thought, like, also when I was playing, and I was like, okay, I think we're still missing a big piece on the personality side. Like I was going through lots of research, lots of reading and like podcasts and that kind of like self-development stuff by myself. And like, I wanted to increase my self-awareness and self-knowledge because I knew that's going to make me a better player when I know myself better and I know how to motivate, for example, myself a little bit better. But then at the same time, I had this thought like this should be a lot easier. It should not be just like up to this one person, like at that case it was just me, like just going through like tons of information to learn. Like there must be something else. And I'm sure like on the like the very, very elite level, like Olympians and so on, they probably do have like their own sports psychologists with them like all the time. But then there's so many more athletes that are alone, that cannot afford to have their own sports psychologists like all the time with them. So then there must be something else that we can do. And that's how we all kind of like got started.
And I think it's so rare as well for someone, not even just an athlete, but someone on a personal level to just discover themselves, to learn what it is that are giving you certain triggers or are causing you to be unhappy or different things to help you discover yourself more. I feel like if everyone kind of takes that as a part of their life, it'll help out so much as far as like being on your journey and propelling yourself to where you want to be in the future. Mental health, everyone's been talking about mental health a lot more these days, and they don't realize that it's not like you have to be crazy or anything just to like take care of your mental health. Mental health is just like an emotional well-being. If you're unhappy with something, you need to take care of that. That's, part of your mental health.
And that is one of the big challenges in sports world, because it is considered somehow like you're too sensitive or too weak if you need to go and talk to somebody about your problems, because it is a competitive world and you don't want to be perceived as weak. You do want to be the competitor who's going to like, break through the walls if that's needed. So then whenever you're saying like, no, I'm actually struggling with this, it's often very, very like hard for other people to do. And that's one thing I think we need to be changing. Like treating your mental health is the same thing that treating your physical health. Like if we have knee pain, we go to the PT and we fix it. So if we have like anxiety, for example, why would we not try to fix it? Why do we just want to hide it and live with that? Because it is going to bring our performance down. And that's something that just absolutely needs to change. And it's like changing slowly, but it's very slow. Because I think those attitudes are pretty deep in us. Like, okay, what we perceive as an athlete and what athletes should be. But that's why I'm trying to do this work. Like this needs to change.
Yeah. No, most definitely, I agree. And it's like, you talked about it in the sports world, that toughness is kind of like praise. And it's like, oh my gosh, they were able to play through an injury and get through this. And it's like, everyone thinks that that is supposed to be okay. Like, no, you need to take care of your body, and being able to step up and say that, you know what, I'm hurting, I'm injured. I need to put some attention to this and stop playing and not be a superhero. That is another notion, that we need to take.
I know. And so I think it is exactly that superhero mentality. So we have that like image, like, okay, if we fight through this and this and this, then we're going to be perceived as heroes. And we want that. That's like the human nature. Like we do want to be appreciated, and we do want to get that like the feelings of success and good feedback and so on. But I think we should not be like emphasizing like you can get that once you just like struggle a long time and then somehow push through. Like we need to, like, I think still the performance, like if we are really thinking about like the optimal performance, why do we need to struggle to get there? Like why our
because
optimal
society
performance
tells us because society tells us that's how we're supposed to be. We're supposed to, go through this dirty grind of achieving success, when it really doesn't have to be like that.
Yeah, exactly. And also the hustle mentality is something that like that's really so common. And it's like I see it like in some environments it is a little bit flipping already, which is good. So that it's not only about the quantity, but it needs to be about the quality. And you need to be smart in your training and stuff, that you actually do get like the most out of your body and what you're going to do, but at the same time getting the most out of your mind. Like we are just not taking care of the mindsets as much
at all. So, with as being an authenticity coach, how do you help your clients or other sports athletes achieve a level of mental success or mental stability to be able to propel themselves within their career?
So we created a tool for like to increase the self-awareness and self-knowledge in athletes with
Mm-hmm.
a company called Extended Disc, who is
Okay.
globally also very
Mm-hmm.
popular company and also scientifically validated. So that those were the two things that I really wanted to like, they're important for me. Like it just doesn't,
Mm-hmm.
it needs to be also scientific in order to be like trustworthy, because these are the things
Right.
that are sometimes considered as like little woo woo, and we need
Uh-huh.
to change that one too. So I was like, we
Yes.
need a tool that is actually like people can trust. So
Mm-hmm.
we have a tool that is measuring the competencies that athletes have in sports, and there are no like good or bad results. It's more about like how their personality is affecting their performance, and how
Right.
they're currently using their personality traits to their
Mm-hmm.
advantage, or is it actually a little bit like hindering them
Mm-hmm.
because they might be thinking like they should be something else that they're really not. So they're
Mm-hmm.
using a lot of energy in like faking, or that sounds a little bad, but like trying to be something else that
Imposter.
they are not. Yeah.
The imposter syndrome. Yeah, I think that's really important as well because I talk about this a lot on my podcast. Whereas we're living in a world where society wants everything to be standardized. We have standardized tests, standardized learning, and everyone is not the same. Everyone doesn't learn the same, and those tests prove that. Some people may
Yeah.
learn better by writing something down. They may learn better by touching something. They may learn better by hearing something. Everyone is different in their own way, and that's where you get a lot of people to feel like, oh, I'm a failure, but in
Yeah.
reality it's just that you have to take a different approach than someone else in a certain situation, just because everyone is not the same. We're not made
Yeah.
all the same. Like, we're all human beings, but we're not made all the same in a mental aspect, I would say.
Oh my God, I agree 100%. That's exactly it. And like, so for example, with this tool, it's just like a starting point that we use with athletes, and just trying to like emphasize the message that this
Hmm.
is not going to tell who of you are going to be like on the top.
Right.
It's just like, how do you going to use your own personality traits and characteristics to
Hmm.
benefit from those, and not just trying to push down like who you actually really are deep inside, and
Right.
fighting against that like true nature that you have.
Hmm.
And at the same time, if you think about like all the elite athletes or who have been like made that journey to the top, there are certain things that do usually happen throughout their career, but they're
Right.
very different personalities, they're very different
Hmm.
paths. So it's just
Right.
up to the individual like to make their own path basically, and not believe
Mhm.
like, okay, there's only this one highway that everybody should just like cram into, and that's going to take you to the destination.
Right. Even like the practice aspect of it, where someone may only need to do these certain drills and they commit it to muscle memory within, like, what I say,
Mhm.
like 5 hours. Someone else may need to put in those 10,000 hours just to commit it to their muscle memory, and taking those certain tests tell you that about yourself. Like, I know certain people where they cannot memorize something unless they write it down 5 or 10 times. Me, I'm the type of person where I may not remember your name unless I say it 3 to 5 times. I have to say your name 3 to 5 times to remember it. So everyone is different as far as how they operate in their levels of success. So
Yeah.
I think that's another way for the world, as we are changing, to put those things into perspective and to not necessarily, tell everyone that if you don't fit this level of standardization, then you're not going to be successful. It's finding out what works for you, what's best for you, and implementing those characteristics.
Yeah, and we also hear so many, like everybody has an opinion about like how we should be doing things, and
Yes.
that is getting so overwhelming. And especially like if you're in that like very competitive sports world,
Hmm.
where like your performance is basically everything. So
Hmm.
then you do want to like listen, like the people who know what they're doing, but they
Mhm.
still don't know what is the best one for you unless you really
Right.
like try and feel aligned with whatever you're doing.
Mhm. Right. I think good coaches and good trainers are able to tailor, um, let's say a drill or something to each person specifically, just finding out what works for this person, finding out how they process things. I think that's what makes a good coach and a trainer or a teacher, whoever is, trying to convey something to someone and help them improve in their skills. I think just finding out what works for that person and being able to decipher between different personalities is like an ultimate key factor when it comes to coaching.
Oh yeah, definitely. And that's one of the things that I was also writing about like in my blog lately about like
Hmm.
authentic leadership. So it's not only about the athletes to like know what they are standing for and so on, but they are
Right.
being kind of like led by coaches and managers in the sports clubs and so on. And
Hmm.
these people, like if they don't know how to like lead authentically, it's going to be
Hmm.
really hard for the athlete then to be able to like have that courage to express themselves in a way
Right.
that would actually like get the best out of them. But if
Hmm.
that's never supported, if it's always said like you need to be this certain way to fit
Hmm.
into our team or this model or system or whatever it is,
Hmm.
I don't know, it's just going to be really tricky. So that's one of the other parts, like yes, I'm absolutely working probably the most with athletes, but then
Hmm.
I do have coaches there as well and trying to like convey a little bit like, okay, you don't need to like treat every single athlete the same way if they have
Hmm.
these little differences, which they obviously do have, but there are ways also like to treat your athletes a little bit differently so they would feel more comfortable in expressing themselves.
Right, most definitely. So I know that on our journeys to finding success, especially in entrepreneurship, building that blueprint for ourselves and being able to continuously move along our journey, what have been some of your biggest obstacles that you've had to face?
In my entrepreneurial journey.
Yes. Well, if you want to share in your sports career journey as well, what are
Mm.
some of the biggest obstacles you've had to encounter on your way to where you are now?
Definitely my biggest struggle was that injury that I got because it was
Mm-hmm.
such a big life transformation.
Mm-hmm.
So then I would say like what all the thoughts that came to my mind during that time, like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
if this is gonna be like, who am I? Like even though I had
Right.
done a lot of self-awareness work or lots of like
Mm-hmm.
personality and self-knowledge and so on, it was still one of those things like, okay, well, who I really am and what should I
Mm-hmm.
do without volleyball?
Right.
And if you think about like that in the entrepreneurial like journey that I have had now, it's a little bit the same always, like, am I really good enough for this?
Mm-hmm.
Like, but then
Right.
I do have that knowing like I can absolutely learn. Like I have always the capability to learn. And
Mm-hmm.
once I now also found like during that darker period, when I found
Mm-hmm.
that like peaceful moments also in that in that
Mm-hmm.
slump that I was in, now I can also have that like strength, like, okay, I went through that. Now I
Mm-hmm.
will be able to figure out stuff also in this business world that I am in, even though
Right.
that's not my like most comfortable world. And I
Mm-hmm.
do need to put myself out there kind of the
Mm-hmm.
same way. So it is about like being kind of like vulnerable. And at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, you don't want to be copying anybody else. Like you
Right.
should be just yourself, or otherwise you're not going to be attracting the clients that
Mm-hmm.
truly need you and connect with you.
Most definitely. And I love how unique your story is because it shows you that just because one part of your journey or your life experiences may be closed off, it doesn't mean that that's totally the end. Like one person may be saying, oh my gosh, like volleyball is out of my life forever. Whereas you found another way to live your life through volleyball and help others
Hmm.
within their journey. So I think that's the way that we have to look at different things in life. I talk about it all the time as well, where it's like if you go to college and get a certain degree, you don't always have to go the conventional route of, let's say, pre
Hmm.
med, being a doctor or a nurse. You can do something else. You just have to be creative and, like you said, authentic in your way of pursuing a certain career or something that gives you joy and just find something that is unique to you that you love to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Agree so much.
So, if you had to say one thing to women and girls around the world to inspire them to dream without limitations, what would it be?
Good one. Um, I want to emphasize the message that everything that they need in order to succeed in their life is already within themselves.
Mhm.
It's just about really diving a little bit deeper to understand it, that we are also so much more than our bodies, and just we have that fire and the elements that we need to use, like not to use, but like the elements that we want to use in order to feel good and get better and succeed in whatever it is in life. We already have all that skill sets in ourselves.
Right. Most definitely, I agree. So before we close out, I do want to give you the opportunity to allow the audience to know if they want to reach you for services, if they want to contact you, or just to follow your journey. How can they do that?
Well, I'm most active on Instagram, so you can find me there on my name, Saana Koljonen. And then my website is kind of like under construction, but that's definitely the second place where I would love to have people come to visit and read the blogs and just like, I don't know, come to hang out with me there.
Love it, love it, love it. So that information will be in the description as always. And we enjoyed having you on here, Sana. It was such a pleasure. We thank everyone once again for tuning in to Made to Dream. I'm your host, Maya Shana, and we'll see you next time.